Good afternoon, everyone. Can everyone hear me okay? Okay. Welcome to this presentation sponsored by Jefferson Humanists. It's great to see you all here. I have a standard joke lately of thanking you for coming out in this brutal winter weather in Colorado in February. But it's nice to see all of you. I know a lot of the faces in the audience, and there's some I don't. My name is Don Toops, and I'm the president of Jefferson Humanists. And it's great to have you here. And for those of you who are not super familiar with what we do, there's a lot of regular activities and programming that we have offered on a weekly and monthly basis. There are monthly presentations like this, which are on the fourth Sunday. There is a book club that meets once a month, and there's an assigned book, and books are chosen democratically from year to year. And there is a sci-fi discussion, and there's a kind of a recently resurrected movie night or movie showing once a month. And our goal is to have both a variety of different types of activities, but also I would say that some of our activities are more cerebral and even at times more academic, and some of them are much more laid back and just dealing with events that come up in everyday life that span across politics and environmentalism and society, and so the topic of these different activities is not always humanism. We do look for topics and presentations and activities that have some kind of linkage or tentacle to humanism. So that's kind of the binding theme of what we do. But just to be clear too, we are not. I would describe humanism as a way of thinking, a way of looking at the world. So there's no dogma involved here. We're looking to pursue moral lives in the world, and looking to inform the way we think about situations and also the way we act in different situations. So I'll make a couple of comments about today's presentation. And when I was reading a little bit, doing a bit of advanced research about the talk today, and Brady, I looked up you and did a little bit of intel on your background, and also researched the Braver Angels website. And there's a lot there. There was one sentence that really resonated with me, and the sentence, and I may not get it verbatim, but the sentence said that Braver Angels is about supporting people who want to engage across differences. And I think that's as relevant and important today as it has ever been. And just a couple of quick reflections about that. For about 6 years, I was on the board of a public charter school. And I don't know if you know that term, public charter school, but a public charter school, at least in Colorado, is a state school. It's a public school that pursues some sort of pedagogic approach. In our case, it was Waldorf education, but we had to balance the aims of a Waldorf approach to education with state standards and testing and things like that. So we were very much a public school that had a particular focus in its pedagogy. And there was a consultant we worked with from time to time who was one of the wisest people I think I've ever met. But one thing he said to me was, he said to us as a board was, when you get comfortable dealing with conflict, you get comfortable moving toward it as opposed to away from it. And that really stuck with me. And just to be clear, when he said moving toward it, it doesn't mean lobbing metaphorical grenades and criticizing people. It meant going into situations where there was conflict and asking questions and wanting to listen to the answers to those questions. and going into it with an open mind to, among other things, try to understand the different viewpoints at work and to really wrestle with some of the issues that were involved in these conflicts. And so this whole idea of being comfortable with conflict and specifically comfortable enough to engage in it and run towards it as opposed to running away from it, I thought it's something that has always stuck with me. The second reflection I'll share is that for those of you who are familiar with the 10 commitments that were put out by the American Humanist Association, there are some of them that are more in the realm of thinking, like critical thinking and empathy, and they're more like that. And the thing I think is interesting about today's presentation is that I don't know exactly what Brady is going to say, but I think he will probably talk about moving from that thinking realm into that acting realm. And so, it's not always easy to change one's mind about something or even to coalesce an opinion or a stance on something. But at least in my experience, doing that has always been easier than engaging with someone who has a different position. And so it's that idea of moving from the comfort of my own brain to the outer world and engaging with real world differences and having to engage and think through and talk through differences of opinion. And so again, this idea of as people who embrace humanist values and humanist ideals, moving from the comfort of the thinking realm into the big scary world of people and opinions that differ from ours. And so I look forward to hearing what Brady has to say about that. So the last thing I want to say before I pass the gavel to Jim Bowl is that for those of you who are new, if you're interested in joining or even interested in attending some of our events pre-membership, we invite you to do that, and also feel free to ask questions of any of us who are existing members of Jefferson Humanists. And we always welcome new people and expand the diversity of thought within our group. And so we welcome you to join and or become more engaged and experience more of what we have to offer. So yeah, there's that. So with that said, I'm going to introduce my colleague and fellow board member, Jim Bowl, who's going to offer, didn't see it there, who's going to offer a humanist moment to help set today up. So, go ahead, Jim. Sure.
Hello. David Brooks, author of and New York Times journalist, recently retired from the Times. His final article of late January 2026 is entitled "Time to Say Goodbye." I will read an excerpt from it that includes his views on humanism. The culture President Trump champions, because it is built upon domination, is a dehumanizing culture. True humanism, by contrast, is the antidote to nihilism. Humanism is anything that upholds the dignity of each person. Antigone trying to bury her brother to preserve the family honor, Lincoln rebinding the nation in his second inaugural address, Martin Luther King Jr. writing that letter from the Birmingham jail. Those are examples of humanism. Tracy Chapman and Luke Combs singing Fast Car at the Grammys, that's humanism. These are examples of people trying to inspire moral motivations, pursue justice, and move people to become better versions of themselves. Humanism comes in many flavors: secular humanism, Christian humanism, Jewish humanism, and so on. It is any endeavor that deepens our understanding of the human heart, any effort to realize eternal spiritual values in our own time and circumstances, any gesture that makes other people feel seen, heard, and respected. Sometimes it feels as if all of society is a vast battleground between the forces of dehumanization on the one side, rabid partisanship, social media porn, bigotry, and the beleaguered forces of humanization on the other. If you want to jump in on the side of humanization, join the great conversation. This is the tradition of debate that stretches back millenniums, encompassing theology, philosophy, psychology, history, literature, music, the study of global civilizations, and the arts. This conversation is a collective attempt to find a workable balance amid the eternal dialectics of the human condition, the tension between autonomy and belonging, equality and achievement, freedom and order, diversity and cohesion, security and exploration, tenderness and strength, intellect and passion. The great conversation never ends because there is no permanent solution to these tensions, just a temporary resting place that works in this or that circumstance. Within the conversation, each participant learns something about how to think, how to feel, what to love, how to live up to his or her social role. One of the most exciting things in American life today is that a humanistic renaissance is already happening on university campuses. Trump has been terrible for the universities, but also perversely wonderful. Amid all the destruction, he's provoked university leaders into doing some rethinking. Maybe things have gotten too pre-professional. Maybe colleges have become too monoculturally progressive. Maybe universities have spent so much effort serving the private interests of students that they have unwittingly neglected the public good. I'm now seeing changes on campuses across America, from community colleges to state schools to the Ivies. The changes are coming in 4 buckets. First, a profusion of courses and programs that try to nurture character development and moral formation. Second, courses and programs on citizenship training and civic thought. Third, programs to help people learn to reason across difference. And fourth, courses that give students practical advice on how to lead a flourishing life. I look at these efforts with growing admiration and enthusiasm. My questions are, how can I get involved? Where do I go to enlist? In my particular case, David Brooks, the answer turns out to be New Haven, Connecticut, where he teaches. And of course, the forces of humanization are needed not just on campuses, but also within every company, community, and organization where people are engaged in the vital search for good conduct, ethical leadership, and a greater wisdom about what is truly significant. My books have been attempts to bring humanistic thinking to popular audiences, and wherever I go, I confront people who long to feel uplifted, who hunger for the wisdom that has been handed down by sages and prophets through the centuries. And now I'd like to introduce our program chair and board member, Nancy Bolt, who will introduce the speaker.
Okay, thank you very much. Thanks for reading that. David Brooks is one of my very favorite columnists. It's my pleasure to introduce Brady Young, who is our speaker today. He is from Braver Angels, which you're going to hear a lot more about. You can read about him in the program, which I hope you have. Some of you can look at it. So I'm not going to read this whole thing about Brady's background. I'd like to tell people a little bit about him, about people personally, our speakers. And so I talked to Brady earlier. He likes to ski, was one of the things, which isn't strange here in Colorado. But he also has become a birder. And he is specializing, what's most interest to him is hummingbirds. And so he used to live in San Diego, which is what got him started on it. And now he's here in Colorado, traveling around looking at hummingbirds. So I think that's an interesting thing to know about people who also have the kind of positions that bring them here to talk to us, which are always usually pretty serious. So I'm going to introduce our Braver Angel board member and also our hummingbird expert.
Thank you, and I would love to spend the next hour talking about hummingbirds. And in many ways, the wonderful setup, yep, I'm pulling it up. With that setup, in many ways, I want to just say, here, and we can leave. That was just beautiful, the opening, and both just from the perspective of the humanist, but then the context of Braver Angels. So thank you for the warm welcome, friendly faces, and hopefully by the end of today, we can maintain that spirit. With that in mind, who's ready to talk about politics? See some people kind of backing away, some people leaning in. But hopefully through this presentation we can show that it doesn't have to be this big scary monster, that what we're really trying to do, and I want to say this at the beginning before I forget, at Braver Angels we really are not trying to change the views of other people. We're not trying to change someone's mind, or even our own. We carry our passionate beliefs, our convictions, but what we do try to change is our views about each other. That's the key. If there's a takeaway today, it's we don't want to change the views of someone else. We could talk long and hard about facts, what's true, what's false, all of that, but we really want to change our views about each other. All right, well, let's jump in. Yeah.
Go ahead, Steve. It's right up there. I just lost it.
Perfect. Can everybody hear me okay? Cool. All right, well, I'm Brady. I've been involved in Braver Angels and the political peace-building movement for about 6 years. I grew up just down the road in Littleton, Colorado, and it was at a young age. I was in kindergarten when the Columbine shooting happened, and then I was in 3rd grade when 9/11 happened. And it was only after reflecting on those events as I grew up that I realized how formative those were in my life and what led me to a peace-building movement. I remember not so much the events themselves, because I was very young, but I remember the way that the community and the nation came together. Even if it was at a surface level, even if it was at sporting events and kind of this rah-rah, there was something I felt at a young age where I was like, this is what this country's about. All different creeds and different types of people coming together regardless of your beliefs. We share this land, we share this common home together, and I don't think we get to solving many other issues unless we have that base for us. So that's what kind of launched me into this, and I was thankful to find Braver Angels. I was just kind of Googling all different sorts of organizations that were in this type of work, landed on Braver Angels. We started in 2016 in the wake of that presidential election, and some people in Ohio, it was a pastor and a businessman, one from a rural community, one from an urban community, got 8 Republicans and 8 Democrats to come together and work through their values, their concerns, their proposed solutions to things, and that's really what birthed what we have today. It's grown in a lot of different ways, but it is a grassroots, volunteer-driven organization. We have some representatives here in the room too. Terry here is one of the co-chairs of our Denver Alliance, and we'll share a little bit more about kind of the structure at the end. And then Ginger in the back, one of our Colorado State coordinators, and sitting next to her is Chauncey, who wears many different hats, but is on one of the leadership committees of the state. So in preparing for today, it's been fun to get to know more about the Jefferson humanists, and what stood out to me immediately is the word curiosity. And when we talk about morals and things, it's kind of implicit that there has to be some sort of curiosity component. And in a society that seems to crave and uplift certainty, I'm always struck and drawn to groups and people that have an authentic kind of search. They're on a pursuit of thinking and thinking deeply at things, but just leaning into curiosity. It's really refreshing, talking about ethics and reason and human dignity. and creating space for lifelong learning. And that's really what we're about too, Braver Angels. So I'm grateful to share this space with you. So real quick, I'd like a little interaction from the group here. So either what drew you to this group, or talking about navigating difficult conversations, what piqued your interest in coming tonight? So I'd like to hear just quickly from a couple people.
We'd like to use the mic.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Is it on? Hello? Oh, it is, for sure. Anyone want to answer his question? Anyone want to answer his question?
What made you want to come, or what brings you to this group?
A few months ago at the Jefferson Humanists, we had a presentation about rhetoric, which was really interesting. It talks a lot about how people get their ideas out there, how they kind of present their ideas to other people. And I mean, obviously in our current political just climate and how polarized things have become, I think a lot of us are interested in just both what is going on the other side and how do we talk to people? How do we either just get through to them and understand people?
Thank you. One more person?
Anybody else?
I'm not sure what I'm going to say, but
Thank you.
I'm just, very concerned about polarization and about how the two different sides dehumanize the other side. And, when I like the idea that empathy and curiosity can get you to where you see the other person as human. In fact, I did a polarization workshop at the UU Church in Boulder just last week.
Oh, cool.
So, and we talked about Braver Angels.
Awesome. Thank you. Thank you. Okay, one more.
Oh.
Yeah.
Well, I work with Indivisible Table Mountain, and we sponsor the downtown Golden demonstrations like No Kings. And my job is recruiting and organizing the marshals, which means I'm very interested in de-escalation techniques.
Thank you. Cool. All right, so just a quick sense of kind of the why behind Braver Angels. I said, when and how, but why, some of it has been shared, that across the country, we're not just disagreeing with each other, we're losing trust and connection, and I'm sure some people in this room, myself included, have lost some relationships over that, friendships, family, and outrage has become a reflex. It's not just something you choose to feel, it's a reflex, a reaction to a lot of what we see and hear. And a lot of people feel stuck between withdrawing completely or leaning in and joining the fight. It seems like there's this dualistic either or there. And so Braver Angels tries to kind of be in that messy middle of, because all of us volunteers, we're human, we feel the same thing other people do. So there's no secret sauce that waves a magic wand over these issues, but it's a place that can kind of ground us as we feel like we want to withdraw fully or just join the fight. So we exist to address that deeper problem, the breakdown of human connection across differences. So again, it's not what we believe so much, it's the why. Why do we believe what we believe? We talk so much, what do you believe? And then we make a judgment about that. But why do you believe what you believe? And that's when personal experiences come up, that's when stories come up, and we can connect as humans. That's what helps us change our views about each other, not just change each other's views on things. We really focus on something we call courageous citizenship. You'll hear that coming up quite a bit. And that's engaging one another with respect, with some skills, with courage and dignity, choosing to act instead of react, and building together in community. So we're not in individual silos, we're doing it in local communities. We, very importantly, do not advocate for policies or candidates. We are a 501c3 nonprofit organization, but we do strengthen the civic practices that make real problem solving possible. And everything we do is grounded in research and from conflict transformation and relationship science. One of our co-founders is a marriage and family therapist. And he found that it's almost plug and play. The same principles he would use with a couple, you can actually use in navigating political disagreements. So a lot of our workshops are kind of built with that framework in mind. We have 3 pillars that we are kind of building underneath this courageous citizenship idea. Because you may hear courageous citizenship like, what does that actually mean? It means something different probably to each one of us. But the 3 pillars underneath are skill building, convening, and collaborative action. So hopefully that's kind of a progression from you gain your skills, and then we convene and we kind of practice our skills. And through that, issues arise, certain needs in our community rise to the surface, and then we can work collaboratively to act on them. So in skill building, we have a lot of workshops that help you with these skills. We'll give a little taste of that today. In convening, we have debates, town halls. Our alliances meet, Denver Alliance, at least every month, every other month. And then alliances around the country do just lunches, book clubs. That's where we can convene and just talk human to human. And then that collaborative action piece, we have an initiative called Citizen-Led Solutions, and there's town halls around that, and that's where really bringing solutions and action into our local communities. And these pillars, they show up in 3 different ways: at the individual level, and then at the communal level, and then hopefully and ideally at the national kind of systemic level. This is just the front page of our website, so you can get a grasp for some numbers. So Braver Angels has a national presence. We're a national organization, but we have 131 local alliances around the country. We have one in Fort Collins here, Northern Front Range, and then we have a Denver Metro Alliance, and then we have a Southern Front Range Alliance. And we also have like a state level support system where we don't have an alliance in remote parts of the state or something, we can take in inquiries and do presentations like this or workshops. So wherever you are, we can come to you. We're volunteer driven. We have, and member driven as well. We have over 15,000 members and almost 71,000 participants in our events. So we're one of the larger grassroots bridging organizations in the country right now. Hopefully today you'll get a little bit better understanding of how polarization affects us, we'll experience some core communication skills, and then just learn a little bit more about Braver Angels. We'll address the problem of polarization, a few of the principles to help navigate these conversations and the skills involved. That will include a little mini experience in your chairs. It'll be easy and safe and brief and engaging. And then we'll end with just a quick overview. All right. So, lost my spot. Recent research indicates that most Americans feel exhausted or angry when they're thinking about politics. Is it just by maybe a show of hands? Does that seem to fit? Yeah, I'd raise my hand as well. Not necessarily a fun hobby. So people are saying things like, I don't trust people on the other side. I feel unwelcome, feel isolated. I've lost closeness with my friends or family. And these are no longer fringe experiences. These have become the mainstream for many people. So again, we'll do the microphone real quick. Sorry, I didn't realize make you run around, get your steps in today. But I'd love to hear from 1 or 2 people again of just how is polarization kind of showing up in your life or making your conversations difficult today. So let's not go to like the national level, but think of grocery store interactions or friends, family kind of thing. How is it making it difficult for you?
Yes. You first and then Ron.
Well, I think it's very exhausting because no matter where you are, that's the discussion. Where we used to have discussions about other things, everybody goes to politics. And even when we come to church for the last 2 services, it's been about politics. So for me, it's like at the end of the day, I just need to breathe something else.
Thank you.
Well, I'd really like to be able to talk to my nephew, and that hasn't happened on any deep level for several years.
Yeah. Got one over here. Let me last one.
I would like to see things that are not political not be political, such as a virus is a virus. This is how a vaccine works. This is not your political opinion, and for people to understand that it's not about their opinion.
Thank you.
Oh, I'm sorry.
One more.
I didn't see you.
I don't agree with the term exhausted and angry personally. My friends and acquaintances and myself, we often are more depressed and actually on days dismayed of what is going on with little hope of the future, of the near future.
Thank you.
If I can add, our grandson doesn't want to come to our Zoom meetings because he says all we talk about is politics.
So these are real, right? Each one of us have stories in ways that it impacts us. And you're right, it seems like everything just becomes political, no matter what it is. At least for me, growing up, it seemed like it was somewhat categorically, you could be like, this is politics, this is it, and now it all just seems to blend together. And in some ways, it's kind of beautiful because it's a part of us as humans. We're layered and everything's just kind of balled up. It's hard to separate your experiences from what you're learning and things. You can't compartmentalize things that neatly. So thank you for sharing that. So we're going to jump straight to a few of these principles. And I'll say this, first of all, this seemed like a very smart, educated group. And so a lot of these things are going to feel very basic, very elementary. And the way I like to think of them, it's like going to the gym. It's like going to work out. It's something you need to just refresh yourself of, and it's not groundbreaking information, the way to navigate difficult conversations. But it's like waking up and going to the gym every day and keeping your body right. So a lot of these will be reminders, but I think it's good for us. So first one, it comes down to human dignity. We want to connect with people first. When we connect human to human, we often discover we have more in common in our lived experience than what divides us politically. So if you're talking to someone and you are experiencing some sense that there may be some disagreement coming, rather than jumping into that disagreement, first sit with it and pause and try to understand a little bit more. Connect to them, like saying things like, I get that you see this as ... And so you're clarifying, you're making sure you're phrasing things in the way that they would phrase them. And that shows, oh, they actually care about me. You're connecting as individuals. Or if I understand you right, your concern is ... rather than just launching into why you disagree with what they just said. The second one is accurate disagreement, not distorted disagreement. So after you've connected with someone on that level and now you want to start to share your perspective and you're going to speak fully and freely without fear. That's one of our core principles of what we call the braver way. What you want to aim for is to summarize their view in a way that they would recognize. So you're not putting words, you're trying to actually put their words in their mouth rather than just hearing how you heard it and then spinning it in your own perspective. Does that make sense? So you're just trying to accurately start the conversation rather than whatever frame you might have just heard in. So there's a lot of work in the beginning stages of clarifying and acknowledging their position before you're jumping into your perspective. And then I said a little bit about this before, but it's really important that we look at the values, the underlying values. So it's not so much what they believe in, but it's the values underneath them and the why. So again, rather than jumping into the disagreement, it's like, oh, what values do you hold that brings you to that perspective? Or is there something in your past that makes you believe this way? And that's when stories emerge and you can actually kind of get through the disagreement in a more human way. The next one is to focus on the policy. So if you are having like a back and forth on a specific policy, stick with the policy and not the motives behind the policy. So polarization is at its worst when we assume the other side has bad intentions. So that's affective polarization. So there's polarization, which is just we disagree, and there's affective polarization, where now I'm attaching a label to you. I disagree with you, and you're evil. I disagree with you, and you're stupid. And so that's what we're really trying to cut away at. And so we want to avoid assuming inconsistency equals hypocrisy. So I'll say that again, that assuming inconsistency equals hypocrisy, that's not always true. We are very nuanced people, even if you stand true to one side of the aisle or something. In Colorado, 49% of people are independents. That shows that there's a lot of variation along the political spectrum. And so inconsistency does not mean someone's a hypocrite. It means they're just very nuanced in the way that they think about things. So let's be careful about jumping to that hypocrite label. And real-world policy, it involves trade-offs. When we're thinking of our values, each one of us would rank certain values in different ways. And it doesn't mean that, if safety is your number one and freedom is your last one, it doesn't mean that you don't care about freedom, but at some point you have to make trade-offs if you're ranking your values. And so that's not being a hypocrite, it's just being human. I spoke a little bit about consistency, but the last principle is to be consistent. So strive to be consistent in all areas of your life. That is at work, on social media, with your friend group, and with your family. The more authentic, true self that you're being, that will just organically kind of bleed through in your conversation. I see a lot of head nodding. That's kind of like preaching to the Pope on that one, right? Just being your authentic self. So those are the principles. Some of the principles, I should say. Now we're going to go to some of the skills involved in navigating conversations where we find disagreement. So the first one is acknowledge. And I'll say that we kind of rush past probably the most important skill, which is listening, active listening, and being curious and allowing space to actually hear someone. The difference between hearing and listening. You can hear noise, but are you actually listening? And so once you've listened, now you can acknowledge. So a lot of people here will want to jump straight to sharing their perspective, but it's good to sit with this acknowledge piece for a second. And in acknowledge, that's again where you kind of say, I hear you on this, or you're acknowledging, you're affirming that you've heard them correctly, is really important. I get that this is important to you. So again, you may completely disagree with what this person just said, but that's kind of nice to hear when someone tells you, I get that this is important to you. It shows that I care about what you're sharing, even though I really disagree with it. I care about you. Just hearing that, and I was going to go to the microphone again. Is that okay? I was going to go to the microphone again, just real quick. So hearing this acknowledge step, does this strike you as something hard to do, or is this easy for you? And if it's hard, why might this step be hard?
Well, when we're being authentic, as I think about opportunities to say, I understand you really care about this, it's going to be my tone that is going to make a lot of difference. And how I connect with that thought, right? And my emotions and honesty. So I'm working on that part.
It's very good awareness. Well, I'll share, for me, what's challenging is if I'm hearing something that I'm like, wow, I really disagree with that, it feels a little awkward when I try to acknowledge what they're saying because I don't want to come off as I'm supporting. I used the word affirm earlier. I don't necessarily want to affirm their position. And so somehow in that acknowledgement step, it's like I don't want to give them the sense that I agree with them, right? And so it's a tricky skill. It seems basic, but it is tricky, but it's important. So we've acknowledged them. They know that we have heard them at this point in the conversation. And then this is even harder. Trying to find something that you agree with in what they said. Even if it's something you, bottom line, just do not agree with. You can usually find something that you can agree with them on, and that immediately takes some of the tension out of the conversation. And sometimes that's of value. So again, if you're on totally different sides on like the immigration topic or something, I get that immigration is really important to you. I agree that immigration is a big issue for us to deal with right now. You just agreed with them without affirming or supporting anything that they said. You agree that this is worth talking about. And then this is the fun one. This is when you get the floor, you get the microphone to share your perspective. And there's some crafty ways to do this. We don't want to stereotype. We don't want to talk in generalizations. The whole right or the whole left thinks this way, right? That's not very productive. Use I statements. Are there any teachers in the room? Any teachers? I remember in writing classes, don't use I statements. Don't use I statements. But here, you want to keep it personal. Speak from your lived experience. And, of course, things you've read, stories you've heard, those are important in your perspective. But keeping a one-to-one conversation between things that I've experienced is generally more helpful than talking in large, sweeping generalizations. If facts are being shared, sharing your sources is obviously helpful. And then incorporating their language, incorporating something they said into your perspective, again, shows that you heard them and you're interested in keeping this dialogue going. I'm trying to think of some examples off the top of my head, but you know what I'm talking about. When you are in a certain audience and you can hear the type of words that they're using, try and weave those into your perspective. Even if you're disagreeing with them, you're using the shared language is really helpful. Avoid jargon and labels. And if you want to keep the conversation going, it's nice to end with an invitation. You just shared your perspective. What do you think about this? Rather than just kind of mic drop and leaving or giving them a stern look. All right, so those are the skills. Now we'd like to do just a little exercise, and you all have handouts. There's also going to be the prompts on the screen, but the prompts, as long as I did this right, should be in one of your handouts. And we're going to work a little bit on this agree statement. So I picked this one because I think it's the hardest one. So there's going to be two different prompts, and you're going to only respond to one of the prompts. So after you read the prompts, you'll get a sense of one that you probably align more than the other one. And so the prompt that you're going to respond to is going to be on the quote-unquote other side from you. So it would be the one that you might disagree with more. So what you're going to do is you're going to write a very simple agree statement. How would you find something you agree with in the prompt that you actually disagree with? Does that make sense? Okay, so I'll show the prompts on the screen. Were you able to find them in the handout? Great. And I'll read it too, just so you can kind of get a sense of maybe some tone or inflection. So this one's talking a little bit about crime and policing. So let me get into character here. I think you're overlooking how rising crime is affecting people. There's been a lot of defund the police and anti-law enforcement rhetoric from your side. And while there are certainly some bad actors, most officers are doing their jobs well. It's discouraging for them when elected officials don't show them support. I hope you'll vote to strengthen our law enforcement presence. They can't solve every problem, but they're our first line of defense and deserve strong backing. So that's the first one. The second one would be on the other side of that. So you seem to be putting too much faith in policing as the main solution to crime. Crime is driven by poverty, discrimination, and lack of opportunity, and communities of color often distrust law enforcement for understandable reasons. One of the public safety bills would shift some funds toward social workers handling mental health calls and toward community agencies that address root causes. I hope you'll take a broader view of public safety and not rely so heavily on policing alone. So I hope there's at least one of those prompts that, even for the sake of the exercise, maybe you agree kind of with both of them. There's certain parts of each one where I'm like, yeah, that makes sense. I'm kind of on board with either. But write a simple, or jot it down or in your head, find something that you would agree with in the prompt that you actually disagree with. We'll take just a couple minutes for that. Take about 30 more seconds. All right, time. And I forgot to mention at the beginning, but a lot of the photos you see in these slides are taken from Braver Angels events, particularly our national convention. And we have people wear lanyards. We have reds and blues, so more conservative-leaning people or liberal-leaning people wear the blue lanyards, conservative wear the red lanyards, and then we have yellow lanyards for people that are more independent. I will say, as we've grown as an organization, we've kind of we're starting to shift more away from just kind of this binary paradigm of that. But the photos show, the smiling faces, that we can be in large spaces with large amounts of people that do not fall on the same side of things. Okay, so just take a minute and turn to someone next to you and just share a little bit share your agree statement. And maybe what was challenging about finding something you agree with. So just take a quick minute for that. All right, if you haven't already, switch people, start to switch, make sure the other person shares. About 1 more minute. 1 minute. All right, let's start to wrap it up. We need a bell. Who's got a bell? Ding, 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 ding. Yeah. Do you want me? I can run around with it. I can use it. Sure. Yeah. All right. So we'd like to hear a few of these agree statements. Who'd be willing to share something simple that you would agree with in one of these prompts?
I agree with the statement that most police officers are doing their jobs well.
Thank you. A couple more.
I agree that they can't solve every problem.
I agree that the community needs to be safer.
All right, one more. What's that? You're getting put on the spot. No, back here.
My partner in crime said that she her agree statement was agreeing that rising crime is affecting people.
So these are very simple, right? Okay, so now I want to hear from a few people of what did you notice? What were maybe some values underneath those agree statements? What were some things you heard where you're like, oh, there's the value underneath there?
I would think that the value that you could share, both have in common is, we both value safety and security.
So even if you disagree with the prompt in full, you're finding an area that you are agreeing on something, right? Cool. Anyone else? Just what did you notice in that exercise about yourself? Was it challenging to do that? Did you find, that was actually pretty easy to find something I agreed with there?
What I noticed about myself was that I had to keep stopping from saying but. I've read somewhere, that you're supposed to say and instead of but, and I kept working on that during the whole thing.
Yeah.
But I think we all can agree that people can't just do anything they want without consequences.
Thank you. Nancy.
Yeah, just following up on what she said over there is, I realized that you could go for the underlying value of safer communities and even acknowledge, we agree on the underlying value, but it looks like maybe we disagree on the path to get there. Can we maybe talk about a path to get there that we both agree on? That was what I recognized.
Thank you. Yeah, we have one of our flagship workshops is called a Common Ground Workshop. And that's not every workshop do we like separate reds and blues, or if we have a topic, just put people on particular sides. But those workshops we do, and because they're really effective. And it's interesting, we have people share their values on a topic, their concerns, and their proposed solutions. And there is always a lot of overlap on values. So that shows we actually agree on a lot of our values. We just have different ways of approaching the solution. So then when we get towards the end of the workshop, it's a lot harder. There's a lot shorter list of things that we agree on. But we just did a Trustworthy Elections initiative in 2023 and 2024 and developed a full report of proposed solutions that both sides came together with. And it's fascinating. We're doing the same thing on immigration right now. And in all of those workshops, there's a huge list of values and a huge list of concerns that are very similar. And then it just takes a lot more effort on the proposed solutions part. Yeah. All right, one more person. We got time for maybe one more of just something about that exercise that you either noticed about yourself or some of the underlying values there. Yeah.
Admittedly, hello?
Yep.
Okay. Admittedly, with me, I found myself asking more questions to like the person because these were very broad statements. And I'm like, I recognize that a lot of people getting to the more specific points of it tells me a lot more about them and what they are thinking in terms of things. And so I kind of wasn't, I was thinking, I wasn't at the agree part yet. I was still kind of trying to figure out what they were thinking, what their point of view on things is.
I'm really glad you brought that up because in the skills that we teach in the workshops, we try to make it not come off as there's just this direct linear progression from each one. Sometimes you have to sit with one for a while and stay in that acknowledgement phase for a while, or the listening piece often involves questions. So before you share your perspective, you might just sit in there for a while. It's not just listen, acknowledge, agree, perspective. Sometimes you got to sit in one of those for a long time before you get to the perspective. Awesome. Thank you. Well, that brings me right to the end of really the meat of the presentation, and I think we'll have some time for questions, but I do want to reiterate the ways to get involved. At the national level, we have weekly and often multiple events during the week. These are workshops, topical discussions, film discussions, book clubs. We have a Braver Arts and Music group. So if you're a creative individual, there's songwriting together. So there's a lot of different ways at the national level to get involved. A lot of things are done via Zoom. But then we also have a lot of in-person opportunities, and they're increasing here in Colorado. We're kind of been in a revisioning state in Colorado. We're really re-energized by the direction of Braver Angels. We had a new CEO come on board this past summer, and it hasn't changed our mission or anything, but it's really helped provide some structure. We're, like I said, a grassroots movement. If you've been a part of a grassroots volunteer movement, it just kind of went chaos, and it was great. It was beautiful chaos, but there wasn't a lot of systems and support there, and so he's really helped us with that, and we're looking with Ginger's help at the state coordinator level and just really trying to increase Braver Angels activity in the state. And it's not just about Braver Angels. There's so many other bridging organizations, groups like this right here, that we're looking for individuals and partners to do this type of work with, because courageous citizenship is not a Braver Angels thing. It's a country thing. So it doesn't have to be Braver Angels. We don't hold the keys to, or the magic wand to this problem. We need partners, we need people, we need local communities that are looking to solve tough issues. One of the best examples in Braver Angels about solving or getting to action was over a stop sign. Some people really wanted the stop sign in the neighborhood, some people really didn't. And we were able to bring people together through one of the town halls, and they came to a solution that both sides were comfortable with. So you could just think about all the different ways with your neighbors and things where you could bring something like Braver Angels into your community. That's a good question. I don't know. Another good example that I do know the answer to. It was a 4th of July event, and there were groups that wanted to do chalk art, and there was a big group of people that only wanted, American flags and freedom and kind of traditional 4th of July things, and there was another group that wanted different messaging. I don't remember what it was. And both sides were like, no, we want our chalk, not your chalk. And then the solution was they gave just every other space was used for the message. So one had an American flag, the next one had whatever, I forget, it was a particular group that wanted to share their message. And so they gave each block of sidewalk to them. So, and that was through a Braver Angels town hall that they did that. So getting plugged into the local alliances in your area is a good way to get involved. We also have a couple podcasts out there. We're on social media. And then one book, if you love reading and you want to write down a book, Monica Guzman, who does our podcast as well, she wrote a book called I Never Thought of It That Way. And there's also a quick TED Talk on it, and it is brilliant. I never thought of it that way. Yeah, and so you can see how that even in a conversation where you might be disagreeing with someone, it's like, I never thought of it that way. Yeah. All right. Well, before we go straight into if you have any questions, I'd love to hear just how you hope to use some of these skills in your life. If there was anything tonight out of this presentation that you would hope to use as you leave this room. Okay, cool. Thank you. Oh, I did. Guilty.
Oh, okay.
There we go.
No, who had their hand up?
My bad.
Using it in I'm taking a risk communication class and using it to understand stakeholder engagement around many different issues.
Awesome. Anyone else? How do you hope to use these skills? Yeah.
I'd like to remind the group that the polarization in our society is not just political, it's also religious. And I happen to have a long-standing friendship with a person who is deeply religious because we focus on what we have in common. We just don't address the religious disagreements. There's no point. We are both convinced 100% each other that we are right. Mm-hmm. But to acknowledge the generosity of the person, the friendship, the gracefulness and so forth. I think that is very important.
Thank you. Glad you raised that too. These are universal skills. One thing we hear often is, these would be great for my marriage, and of course the marriage and family therapy background helps with that, but it's not just for politics. That's right. All right, one more.
My question to you is, how would you open a conversation with someone who tells you that he truly believes that immigrants are evil? He's been taught that and somehow demonstrated to this person.
Yeah, I think going back to over here, that was raised was asking questions, because if that's something you at face value disagree with, getting to the why. Why? What is it about your life or your upbringing? What did you learn that you have come to this perspective? So that's how you would open the door to the conversation, is curiosity. All right, last one. Oh, good.
No, I thought she did, but you didn't.
All right. Well, I think we do have time for some questions,
Yeah,
right?
Okay,
Okay, so
have
general questions. And I would love to call on maybe Terry or Ginger or Chauncey too, if...
No, don't ask a question without the mic, please.
Okay, we'll get to that one.
I'll get back to you.
Yeah.
I was, it's not so much a question, but share a technique that worked really well. at Thanksgiving with our large family gathering, and we have people on both sides of the aisle, is the argument got very heated, and then finally one of us said, you know what? Neither one of us has any power. We're not going to change the national policy. So why are we fighting so heatedly about this? Just tell me what you think, and I'll tell you what I think. And that whole realization that neither one of us could throw a lever and change the world took a lot of heat out of the situation. And it's something I'm going to remember for a long time.
Thank you. Yeah. It reminds me, I think it was maybe Marianne Williamson or something, some spiritual commentator. She talks about we all have our little corner of the universe, and we all have our little garden, and we all are just tending our little garden. And our gardens are obviously interconnected, but that's really all we can control is tending our piece of the garden, our corner of the universe, and hope that ripple effect and that the interconnectedness, rises to the top and influences systemic national change.
Do you want to say something?
Where do you meet in Colorado physically? Where do you give your courses, get-togethers, etc.?
All over. The Denver Alliance recently has been meeting at the Anchor Center for Blind Children. It's East Denver, not quite Aurora, but kind of east of City Park. And there, the Northern Front Range Alliance is really plugged in with Colorado State University. So they do a lot on campus there. They've also met at a couple churches. And Southern Front Range, they're kind of spread out. They've done a lot in Colorado Springs. We had a workshop today in Parker that Chauncey was at, and someone else was here at the workshop. I don't know where she went, but yeah, so kind of spread out. It would just be a matter of, if you're interested, getting on one of the mailing lists, and then you'll see where all of the upcoming events are.
If we wanted to sponsor a workshop and bring you over to West Denver area, we could work with you to do that?
We have a huge list of different types of workshops. We have trained moderators throughout the state. Terry's one of them. So depending what type of workshop you'd want, we would explore which one, and then we'd love to do something like that. Today is more of an overview of the organization, a few of the skills, but our workshops are kind of the meat.
Yeah, a couple comments. First, the workshops are free, right? So there's no cost to that. It's all driven by volunteers, so that's key number one. The other thing that I think is really going to help us, we've been sending out a newsletter. So once you get on a list, you will get that. But so many people can get overwhelmed with newsletters and emails and all that kind of stuff. So what I recommend, and it's something that we just recently did, you can actually go up to our state website, and we have a calendar. So that's something that you can find out what's by you, but at the same time, this is a great opportunity. If you're interested in these workshops, this is exactly the kind of community, this is exactly the kind of venue that we're looking for to be able to deliver those workshops.
Yep. Thank you.
I have just one thought about all of this, is that we're talking about all these things rather on a personal level. But what happens is that we are a two-party system, and no matter how good we get on this personal level, we still exert our power through lobbying a certain way. So how do you get off that horse?
Anyone want to take that one? Ginger, come on up.
Well, gosh, I didn't really have a speech in mind, and I am the newest person here, by the way. But this is something that I think about a lot. I'll just say that for me, the reason that I joined Bravery Angels is because I really believe we need a better educated and more communicative and more open constituency to start electing officials that reflect these values of having conversation and looking for common ground and getting in there to do the work. So I think that long term, by creating a constituency that's used to doing the work and talking across the aisles, we're going to start electing people that do that too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Well, I just want to share an anecdote. Some years ago, I was making telephone calls for Ed Perlmutter when he was running for U.S. House of Representatives, and the script was, "What issues are important to you?" And then shut up and listen. Okay. And so I got this guy on the phone. And as soon as I say that, he starts yelling in my ear, "The laws are so unfamous to men," and rah, rah, rant, 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 yell, yell, yell. And he gets into, and the women got to have so much sex they can't pay for their own birth control, rant, rant, rant. And when he ran down a little bit, I said, "Well, who do you think should be making the decisions about birth control? Should it be the employer, or should it be the government, or should it be the woman?" And he yells in my ear, "I think it's between the woman and God." We agreed.
Wow, that was beautiful.
Anybody else? Yes, Don. Excuse me.
I concluded this in a work context, but I think it's true beyond just the work context. But there are times when I think communications will happen in a medium like email, for example, and there's a temptation to try to address sensitive issues. And I concluded years ago that sometimes when they arise in a medium like that, or in this, or in lots of other, X or Instagram, whatever, the best thing to do is to say, let's talk. Let's not have this conversation via email. I'll call you, whatever it means, but let's have a one-on-one, because certain mediums or media are just not suitable for having conversations about difficult topics or sensitive topics. And so making that judgment call and say, I'd love to talk to you about this, but let's not do it via email. Sort of thing.
Yeah, time and place. Reading the room, being aware of your own emotions. One of my boss's best thing I learned from him was, if you get an email that really fired you up, go take a walk, and then come back to it. Save that. Yeah.
I don't remember the author of this book, but it's one that is a good primer for this. And the title of the book, I think, was "What Happened to You?" What happened to you, which is a good lead-off question for somebody to explain to you in their own terms why it is that they believe what they believe. And it's very non-threatening to ask somebody that question. What happened to you?
You answered your own question with your friend in the immigration.
Yeah, it was written by Oprah Winfrey, which is what sold it, and a child psychologist. And the question she asked is, when somebody does something that looks crazy, don't say, "What's wrong with you?" Say, "What happened to you that made you do whatever you did?" It's a great book.
That's
Great
good.
for a book discussion. Oh.
So one thing I really, is it on?
Yeah.
One thing I really liked was that you said, be consistent, even in your social media. And I have to tell you, that's one of the hardest things to do, because that's when that anger can come out. And in a lot of cases, depending on how your social media is set up, you can be anonymous. And those trolls in your own cell come out. So I really appreciated that, and I think it's something we all need to do. I had a friend on Facebook. We had a difference in what was going on in Minneapolis with ICE. Had a few back and forths, and I finally said, look, I don't want to do that here. Next time we get together, let's have a coffee and talk about it. So I hope that's one way to, it doesn't always happen online, but if it is someone you know, maybe doing it personally could help.
Yeah.
Someone back here? Oh, Nancy.
I was looking at your slides, and I know this is just an overview, but these kind of techniques, it just kind of reminds me of breaking the ice with people. And I know you said you do workshops and you try to get a consensus and people to come to a shared solution. But in my opinion, what I think we need in terms of trying to educate people is to, like, it's a strange vision, but help people to understand how their opinions may not be informed by facts, and to have a computer in the room and it's like fact versus opinion, and show people that their opinions may not be fact-based and why it's important that they should be fact-based, because we don't want to, millions of people running around believing things that can destroy our society. And the other thing is, I think it's important to teach people how to recognize when politicians or other people are lying to them or conning them. And there's various ways to show that to people and demonstrate that they've been lied to, and it's not just Republicans or politicians that have lied to other people, but it's important for people to understand how to grasp a technique or ways to recognize those lies, because those are also destructive to us.
Thank you.
Thanks again for this talk today. It's fantastic. A lot of good resources. I would say that the thing that I took out of this was the concept of humility. Be able to say, I don't know, maybe I'm not sure. These are my facts or ideas. Can you share with me yours? During the exercise, my partner and I were talking about that very thing, about confronting somebody else's point of view, demanding facts or their sources or whatnot. And I would say the thing that you sort of tended to point out was be able to say, I don't know, and use I statements for how I feel, and avoid the you statements. You must this. I can see that you, blah, blah, blah. So this was really helpful, and I appreciate it. So I'm going to try to move forward with the curiosity.
Thank you.
While I walk over to Dennis, I'd like just to ask a question. If we sponsored a workshop of Braver Angels, and you're not committing to anything, but how many of you would be interested in coming to it here? Oh, wow. Okay, we'll see what we can do. That sounds great. Okay.
For all of us bashful people in the room, I observed a long time ago that if you don't talk, nobody listens.
Say more about that.
So, other comments?
Yeah, I know we're like right at time, so I don't want to push us.
I'm going to give a minute to Ralph Hughes, because he does a program kind of like this at the Secular Hub.
Yeah, am I on? Yeah, I've been a member with Jefferson Humanists for 10 years now, and we started something called the Post-Partisan Forum, which meets at the sister organization to this, which is the Secular Hub. And we do it first Saturday every month. It's at 6th and Federal, in that neighborhood. And we invite people, red and blue, to come and talk about policy. So, and we have had Braver Angels come and do workshops for us so that we were able to handle these situations in an elegant and constructive way. But we take it one more step, and we always open with research by the University of Maryland called the Voice of the People Project, and they have 150 issues, major policy issues, that over 50% of Republicans and Democrats agree upon. And in aggregate, over 60% of Americans agree upon. And we always start the sessions with this question. If we agree so much on this, why aren't these policies becoming legislation? Why aren't they becoming law? And that one question has melted the barriers between red and blue so effectively, because both people sit there and say, oh geez, we're being played. What can we do if we unite to solve that problem? Here, here.
I invite you all, and we'll try to get this in the blast in a timely fashion, but to join us on the first Saturday of every month. Thank you.
The Blast is our weekly newsletter. If you haven't signed up for it, Bob will be at the table to take membership or renewal, and he can take your email to get the Blast. Okay, let's give a great hand of applause for Brady.
Thank you all.
And a brief notice about next month's meeting in March. You may have seen information about our January meeting where a gentleman was going to talk about bats and the problems that are facing them, and we canceled it because of the weather. So he will be back in March. So fourth Sunday in March, I hope you'll come at 4 o'clock and hear about bats flying around at night. So thank you all very much for coming. If you brought food, please take you what's left and all of the plates that go with it. Thank you very much.